Okay, so this is going to be a Raiders demo or a mechanics video. So let's go in and explain how it works. So Raiders is an event that happens, every 2 weeks and is a 1 hour event. You get there by going to the Raiders menu. So let's just look at the reward first. So as you can see, it's a very important event to compete in because it A, gives you lots of rewards. B, it's very fun. C, it also helps us to recruit because if we do well, exceptionally well, we can start recruiting out of it. So I really need everybody to participate. All right, so first things that you can see is it gives a lot of individual exploits. So 50,000 exploits if you lose, 100,000 exploits if you win. Gold stars, as you know, are very expensive, so that is 2,500 gold worth of stars if you lose, and 5,000 gold and stars if you win. So in general, everything in this event is very important to have. All right, so this is the base prize if you win or you lose, is the guild reward. Just for signing up, you get some points. This is not such a big thing, but hey, just for signing up, it's free. If you sign up and you don't participate in my Raiders, you will not be given the opportunity to sign up again. So don't just sign up and do nothing. Personal rewards. These are a little more complex, but let's go through them. So personal score is something you can see easily inside the Raiders game. You basically get that by completing the events that we'll talk about later. And the more events you get, the higher score is. Most of you will probably score within the 6,000 to 10,000 range. If you pull really hard, you can quite easily get into the 10,000 range. So again, you can see that the rewards are pretty darn good for getting 10,000 and winning. So here again is the loss category. And again, you can see that getting a good score yields some really strong training speed ups. Okay. So let's move on to the rules. All right. So these rules are kind of long-winded and confusing, in my opinion. So we're just going to go through and explain how this works. So we're going to skip basic information because it's not very useful. This is useful. All right. So the point of Raiders is you have an hour to play the match. And what you do is you want to kill enemy units, and you want to control buildings, and you want to get the museum artifacts. All right, so let's talk about all the buildings, but we're going to talk about the museum last. So, repair shop. You want to control the repair shops because if you can control repair shops, you can repair the units faster. I don't know how much faster. It's not really clear to me because usually when I need to repair, I'm spamming repair speedups. But if you repair smaller amounts of units, you can repair them faster. So this is an important note. If you see you've got 30 days of speedups, but you really need 10,000 units, don't repair all your units at once. Just select enough units to be repaired quickly, and then let it go, and then run it again. Armory. So again, if you occupy the armory, it's like a city buff. So when you go into Raiders, and I'll show you later, is that you don't get our regular guild city buffs. So you can't come in and be like, well, I've got all the cities and I'm facing some guild who's got no cities. So the game is balanced in that regard. All that you bring in to Raiders is your temporary buffs, your I think you bring in your guild buffs, you bring in your weapon buffs, stuff like that, but you don't bring in city buffs. So the game itself is a closed game. You get city buffs from the Raiders game itself. Field command. So temporary headquarters set up by the red and blue teams, blah, blah, blah. This is your base, I believe. So basically your base looks like this during Raiders. That's all it is. Heavy bunker. Heavy bunkers are kind of placed in semi-strategic locations throughout the map. Players love to take them, and if you control the bunker, they're extremely toxic to take back. So you don't want to field march these if at all possible, unless you're a very strong siege player. Generally, you will just lose your ass. It's like attacking a turret. You can take a lot of punishment in a bunker. Same with the airfield. Again, swarming airfields is not really recommended, but if you have strong players, you can do it. And both of these places, if you're garrisoning it, you make sure that your strongest player is garrisoning it, and you can just get massive amounts of kills from them, because idiot newbies will swarm this stuff and die like lemmings on a cliff. Supply station. All right, so a lot of people don't really understand how these works. Basically, supply stations are gathering nodes. So if you're a weaker player, and say you still want to contribute to the game, but you can't really hang with all these big monster whales in the game, you can go and take one of your small marches, maybe a fast march, and go and sit on a supply station. These are actually pretty good because they're free points. So I'll get to that in a second. But you need to loot it, and then, as it states, you need to return to the field base to get the points, right? The front line, these are sort of like the heavy bunker. In fact, I think they're exactly the same as a heavy bunker. So the difference is the point values. So occupying any building will give you points. So you want to occupy all the buildings that you possibly can. Some buildings you can only occupy with one march. I think that's like the armory or the repair shop, stuff like that. Only one march can occupy them, and once you occupy them, you can't occupy them again. So if you leave, you're out of luck, and then you have to fight for it again. So that's kind of interesting, and you have to remember that. Bunkers, I believe, are garrisonable, and the airfield is garrisonable. Okay, so the final piece of this puzzle is the museum. So when the game starts, you need to go and periodically through the game, art artifacts will appear in the museum. And what you do is you go to the museum when it's time, and you pick up the loot, and you have to run the loot back to your base. So after you run the loot, you have to stay alive and get it back. So you need a team to protect you. The other thing that's incredibly interesting about the loot is, or very useful about the not the loot, but the lower powered players, is that lower powered players tend to have faster units. So this is a great spot for lower powered players to excel, because the point is not to fight. The point is to get out alive with the loot and take it back. So that is something to keep in mind. The majority of the points is scored from the loot gathering. The rest of these points, though, can make a massive difference in the game, especially if you have even loots or You have, you're down 1 and they've got 1. These other buildings will make up for it. And if you have total map control, it doesn't really matter if they get the loot or not anyway, because they won't be doing anything else, and all the points you get every minute from occupying all the buildings will outweigh the loot. So let's look at some other rules. All right, so you can read these rules yourself, but you can see here are the points earned for everything that you do. So if you loot for the building, if you loot the museum, you get 3,000 points. Pretty big. You can see like armory and repair shop. These are big hits. You really want these. The air bases are really important because you can teleport to them. So on an air base, if you control it, the surrounding airstrip, you can teleport your base there. Teleports are free and they should be used to great effect. There might be a limit on the number of teleports that you can use per match, but they're free. Also, repairs are free. You cannot lose units in raiders, and your garage is infinitely sized. Now, if you have 30 days of repairs in raiders, when raiders ends, all of your units are back to normal, so you don't have to worry about that. You might run out of units in raiders, in which case you'll use repair buffs. But when the game ends, repairs, everything is repaired that you had. So these are really important to note. Another thing that's incredibly important to note is that you need to have all your units in your base before you start raiders, or those units will not be teleported to raiders as well. So, what else? Teleports are free. Units are free. Buffs. You can't change your weapons once Raider starts, but you can run some buffs. So in the Raiders menu, when the game starts, you can run things like fake army or attack boost, stuff like that. So without further ado, I will make now the next video doing a replay.